Hello and welcome to Becoming Bob, Episode 8. I'm Alex, and today I'm painting along with Episode 8 of The Joy of Painting with Bob Ross. Got my 18 by 24 inch canvas there, prepped with a thin layer of liquid white. And I'm now going in with my 2-inch brush, coated with a little bit of Prussian blue. Blended that together to make a nice blue sky up there with some wispy clouds. And now I'm loading it up again and coming in from the sides there at the bottom to create a watery effect. You can see in the middle of the canvas there, the canvas frame was kind of transferring through, I guess you could say. That was really frustrating me at this point in the painting, but you'll see that it wasn't too bad by the end. Mixed up some Van Dyke brown, Prussian blue, and a little bit of titanium white to make a nice gray mountain background color. On this painting I really tried to make an effort to pull my mountains closer to the edge of the canvas to give them a lot more presence. I found that when they were smaller up in the sky, they just kind of looked like they were floating there. Now with the knife again, got primarily titanium white, just kind of floating it down over the surface of the mountain there, letting the paint break as I go to create the snowy highlights on the lit side of the mountain. I'm just kind of connecting a couple of the peaks there with a ridge, create a little bit more interest up there along the mountain line, not just a bunch of basic triangles. Now adding some darker colors in to go in and do the highlights on the shadow side. Now with that 2-inch brush again, I'm kind of stippling away the bottom of the mountain there to create a nice hazy, cloudy effect along the base there. Just kind of blending it. Now making a little bit darker mountain color by adding some alizarin crimson there to make another ridge a little bit closer. Of course, as often is the case in these paintings, closer layers are done darker. In this case, yeah, got some real purple mountain majesty going there. Just pulling that color out with the 2-inch brush. You can see I went from side to side on that one to make sure that, it looked like a real mountain range. Now adding in some of those highlights, giving the slopes a lot more shallow appearance than the steeper cliffs in the background there. Now I've mixed up a nice dark green color, and using my 1-inch brush, I'm putting in a line of evergreen trees there at the base of the Purple Mountain Range. Just tapping up and down, each tap more or less stamping in a tree along that tree line. There were a few trees that Bob did where he added a little extra detail. He would, kind of make what he calls the zigzag trees, where you put in a large thing like that and then go kind of back and forth with your brush. I've had trouble with those in the past, and I had trouble with those now. Mine always end up looking a lot wider and squatter than what I want. You can see I went from side to side again with that layer of trees. Now with my knife, I'm scratching in some tree trunks. I'm now mixing up a lighter yellow, greenish, kind of brownish color. Kind of a mustardy color, I guess you could say. I'm coming in to put some nice little grassy hills in front of that tree line. I'm intentionally picking up a little bit of the darker tree line color though as I go. This makes a nice shadowy area along the base of the trees. And now just adding some highlights then to those hills to just make them appear more rolling and make it look a little sunnier. Now with my nice clean 2-inch brush there, pulling straight down into the water to create that reflection effect and pulling a little ripple in it there. Now picking up a little bit more of that green to put a little darker shadowy bit, I guess you could say, between the hills and the reflections there. And now with the palette knife and some straight Van Dyke brown, just coming in to put the kind of earthen bank along the edge of the water there. And now with the white, just cutting in some of that water line and the reflections there. On this one, Bob had you come out from just the base of the land and actually has you put a few ripply highlights out in the water. I was really nervous about doing this, given some of the issues I've had getting that water line cut in well, but I feel like all in all, mine looked pretty good. And I feel like they did add a lot to make the water look more reflective and more natural. Now back with that dark green color and my 1-inch brush, I'm furiously stamping in a little peninsula there. Now with my 2-inch brush, pulling that down to create a reflection and pulling it across to make it ripple. And now I've got my palette knife out to put in some trunks for those trees. And now back in with a highlight color. Now switching out for the 1-inch brush again with some liquid white and some nice foliage highlight colors, yellowish, greenish kind of stuff going on there. A little bit too thin there, kind of going on soupy, so I mixed in a little bit more of the paint and just started stamping that on there. And now just cutting in the embankment along there and then adding the water line. For as fast as that little peninsula came together, I'm really happy with how it looks. Now back with the 1-inch brush, going in and stamping along some dark foliage shadows there up in the foreground. And I missed the bottom corners of it when I was doing that. I didn't even notice until after I was done with the painting that there's a little water showing through, and that's okay. Adding my highlight colors now, and I really tried to once again do a good job of leaving some of that dark color so that it shows through. Without that dark color, it just makes everything look flat, and it adds so much to have that showing through. Now with the knife, I'm coming in from the right side there with a nice big branch. I'm gonna make it look as though there's a tree just off to the right of the canvas. I'm just kind of hanging over there. Adding some highlights now to those branches. And now going in with the 1-inch brush to add some leaves on there. I really tried to do it somewhat sparingly so that the leaves didn't overpower the branches, but at the same time still had a natural look to them. what I noticed when I was watching Bob do this episode before, when I was preparing for it, I noticed when he goes in to do his highlights, he doesn't do them right on top of the shadows. He kind of does them up and to the side of them. I really tried to do that, especially on this tree, and I think that the effect turned out really nice. Now I'm just getting my knife back out and picking up some more of the Van Dyke brown. I'm going to go into the center of the painting here to add a nice dead tree up there in the foreground. Of course, because there's no foliage to hide your trunk and branches behind, you have to be extra sure that it's going to look good, especially right there in the front and center. Adding in some whitish red kind of highlights there. It's kind of a marbled color to give it more of a barky effect. And now I'm just adding a little bit of highlight there at the base to kind of make the bottom a part of that chunk of foliage. Now with the script liner brush and some paint thinner and the Van Dyke brown, I'm just going in and adding more of the delicate branches. Just really trying to do a good job of making them look as natural as possible. It's something that, it still takes a lot of practice. But, as with everything, I feel like I am getting better at it. And the more I do it, the better it's going to get. Just getting the permanent red there, which tells you it's time for me to sign this one as finished. Thanks for joining me here for episode 8. If you like what I'm doing, subscribe to the channel. Find me on 2inchbrush.com or on Facebook. I'm Alex. Thanks for joining me and have a great day.